He was handcuffed in broad daylight for looking suspicious, but the officers had no idea the black man they arrested was a judge. The very next day he would preside over their case, exposing a system that failed them all. What happened next will shock everyone, but let's start from the beginning. In the lively downtown of Silver Springs, Officer Bradley and Officer Carter moved through the bustling streets with an air of dominance that had become their signature. Their reputation for targeting individuals they deemed suspicious preceded them, a reputation that many locals whispered about but few dared to challenge. Today their attention fell on a man who by their standards didn't belong. Martin Green, a middle-aged black man with an air of quiet authority, emerged from a sleek black sedan parked near City Hall. His crisp navy suit adorned with a pocket square and polished leather shoes spoke of success and professionalism. In his hand was a well-worn leather briefcase, a testament to years of diligent work. Martin exuded confidence, his calm stride suggesting a man with purpose, but to Bradley and Carter his polished demeanor was not a sign of respectability but a red flag. "Sir, stop right there," Bradley barked, his hand instinctively hovering near his holstered weapon. His voice carried the weight of presumed authority, a tone sharpened by prejudice. Martin halted mid-step, turning slowly with a flicker of disbelief in his eyes. His composed face betrayed only a momentary hesitation before he addressed the officers. "Officers, is there a problem?" His voice was measured, steady, and utterly devoid of panic, a response that seemed to unsettle them. "We've had reports of a vehicle matching yours involved in a theft nearby," Carter added, his tone oozing with feigned concern. The accusation was baseless, plucked from thin air, but the sight of Martin's composed demeanor seemed to provoke them further. Martin raised an eyebrow, his voice unwavering. "That's a serious accusation. May I see the report?" Bradley's jaw tightened, irritation flashing across his face. "Hands where I can see them. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice," he snapped, escalating without cause. Passers-by froze, their expressions a mix of shock and unease. Several phones emerged, capturing the unfolding scene. Martin complied without resistance, his movements deliberated as the cold metal of the cuffs snapped around his wrists. "You're making a grave mistake," he said, his voice quiet yet firm. The officers responded with mocking laughter, oblivious to the storm they had just unleashed inside the precinct. Martin Green sat calmly in the holding cell, his composed demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos and hostility around him. Officers Bradley and Carter, bolstered by the false sense of power their badges afforded them, took every opportunity to mock his silence. "Think he's some kind of big shot?" Bradley sneered, eliciting a chuckle from Carter. "Guess he thinks staying quiet makes him look innocent," Carter added with a smirk. Martin's stoic expression remained unyielding, his silence only deepening the unease in the room. His occasional requests for a phone call were met with outright dismissal. Instead they subjected him to hours of aimless questioning, their lines of inquiry more about exerting control than uncovering facts outside the precinct walls. A different story was unfolding. Videos of Martin's arrest, recorded by bystanders, began to spread across social media. The clips captured every unjust detail, the fabricated accusations, the aggressive handling, and Martin's dignified compliance. Outrage swelled online as activists and community leaders decried the blatant racial profiling. News anchors debated the footage, questioning the officers' motives, while hashtags demanding justice began trending. Unaware of the firestorm brewing beyond the precinct, Bradley and Carter reveled in their perceived triumph. To them, Martin was just another arrested number to pad their statistics. The idea that they had detained someone of importance never crossed their minds. In his cell, Martin finally broke his silence, his voice cutting through the air with quiet authority as he addressed the sergeant on duty. "I need to contact my office. I have court tomorrow." The sergeant smirked, leaning casually against his desk. "Court? What, you plan to defend yourself in front of a judge?" Martin's gaze was unwavering as he responded, "No, I am the judge." The smirk vanished. Silence filled the room, punctuated by the clatter of a keyboard as the sergeant frantically checked the database. His face paled as the truth appeared on the screen. Martin Green, justice of the peace, presiding judge at Silver Springs Municipal Court. The weight of their mistake began to sink in, and panic spread like wildfire through the precinct. The storm they had unleashed was about to turn against them. The next morning the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Journalists jostled for space, their cameras trained on the entrance. Community members, many of whom had watched Martin's unjust arrest unfold online, filled the gallery, their faces a mix of outrage and curiosity. The tension was palpable as the clock ticked closer to the start of the hearing. When Martin Green entered the courtroom, the room fell silent. Dressed in his judicial robe, he walked with measured confidence, his presence commanding respect. No longer the man in handcuffs, Martin stood as the presiding judge, his authority unquestionable. He took his seat at the bench, his gaze sweeping the room, lingering momentarily on the two men who had arrested him. Officers Bradley and Carter entered moments later, their usual bravado replaced by evident discomfort. Their faces were pale, their eyes darting nervously around the room, avoiding the stares of the audience and the piercing gaze of the man they had so recently humiliated. Officers Bradley and Carter, Martin's voice rang out firm and resolute. "You stand accused of racial profiling, unlawful arrest, and abuse of power. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" The officers fumbled for words, their responses disjointed and unconvincing. They tried to justify their actions with weak excuses, claiming they were following protocol and acting on a report, but their defenses crumbled under The weight of evidence. The courtroom reviewed viral videos of the arrest showing Martin's composed demeanor contrasted starkly with the officer's aggression. Witness testimonies described the fabricated accusations and excessive force, and then there was Martin's impeccable recorded justice of the peace with years of dedicated service to the community. As Martin conducted the proceedings with unflinching professionalism, the fire in his eyes betrayed his deeper resolve. The irony of the situation hung heavy in the air. The officers had arrested a man on his way to meet the mayor about community reform, only to become the embodiment of the systemic problems he sought to address. By the end of the session, it was clear the truth had unraveled their narrative, leaving Bradley and Carter exposed and just as poised to take its course. The verdict came swiftly, delivering a clear message. Officers Bradley and Carter were suspended without pay pending further investigation. The reckless actions and the blatant racial profiling they exhibited were no longer matters for internal discussion, they were matters of public outrage. The police chief, visibly strained under the weight of the scandal, issued a public apology. He admitted that the department had failed not just Martin Green but the entire community, yet no amount of remorse could undo the damage to the department's reputation. Now seen as a symbol of systemic racism, for Martin the ordeal became a turning point, not just personally but for the community he had long served. Rather than harboring bitterness, he chose to channel his experience into action. With his judicial platform and newfound public support, Martin spearheaded an ambitious initiative to reform the local police force. He worked tirelessly with city officials to develop mandatory training programs focused on dismantling racial bias, fostering community engagement, and rebuilding trust between law enforcement and the citizens. They were meant to protect the story of Martin Green, an honorable judge wrongfully arrested by the very system he represented. Organized the community protest demanding accountability spread across the city, with citizens of all races and backgrounds coming together in solidarity. The incident sparked statewide policy reforms, including stricter accountability measures for officers and the establishment of independent oversight committees to investigate misconduct. Months later, as the dust began to settle, Martin found himself on the steps of City Hall, a rare moment of quiet reflection. Below him, a diverse group of police recruits, each selected under the new reforms, filed into the academy. Their faces were a mix of determination and hope, representing a vision of law enforcement built on equity and respect. Martin's faint smile reflected his cautious optimism. While the scars of injustice still lingered, he allowed himself to believe that change was possible. One day he thought justice would no longer be an uphill battle, it would be a given, a foundation upon which society stood unwavering and fair. For now he remained steadfast in his mission, knowing the fight was far from over, but also realizing that progress, however incremental, was worth every step.